Today we look at Certina, a brand in the Swatch group that I respect. That's a pretty rare thing. First of all, let's look at the physical characteristics of this catalog. We have a soft cover, substantially thick, like most catalogs, longer than it is tall. The pages are decent enough quality, the printing is pretty good. It's kind of that half glossy, lustery texture of the Lange catalog. Certainly doesn't have the wow factor of a catalog like the Lange, but I do appreciate that they make a catalog and they did take their time with the contents, making sure that they look good and that the photos are all good. It may not be spectacular, but it's not bad. Alright, so Certina. The focus throughout this catalog is on the DS concept, turtle shell logo and their toughness, their famous toughness. It starts with the Aqua DS Action series with, to be honest, an average looking diver watch. There are hundreds of them out there that look like this, nothing special. With a focus on the turtle sign, the Certina DS, the double security standard. And we'll get to the history part of that later, but it really is an interesting history. And so this DS Action Diver, the special edition the turtle watch, is the same design as their other, what I call the average looking action divers, except it has this nice little splash of this darker blue than I usually see, and it does look nice. Then a few more of these, and we get to some lady watches, which I'll talk about later. And after all the DS Actions, we get to the Heritage series. The first watch in this Heritage series is their DSPH200M, I guess for 200 meters, dive watch, which is sort of their, I don't know, original, but their famous dive watch. And this one does have a unique design. It does have something different about it to your classic Submariner type watches. It's not really my style. I prefer some different dive watches, but it's certainly not offensive, at least to me. It's not an offensive design, and there's nothing wrong with it. Now we have the DS1 60th Anniversary Special Edition. Now I do wish they would release a non-special edition version, so, well, maybe a little bit less expensive and in more colors. But this is one of my favorite watches from Certina. It is a dressy Certina. It does show the characteristics of some of the other Certinas. For example, the lugs having this bar across them, which I'm not sure I love, but it is characteristic of Certina. And it's a nice case. I do like those applied indices, those diamonds, those sharp triangles I do like. And it's regular hands, regular everything. I do like the color. And what I most like about this, of course, is the large date on the bottom. It's at 6 o'clock for some reason. It's weird, I haven't seen that anywhere else, and I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not usually a big fan of 6 o'clock date wheels, but this one, this big date, it works for me. After that we have the DS1 Edition Himalaya, which are also, in my opinion, nice watches. I prefer that big date one, but these have a nice dial design. Now we get to their sport line, which, from what I can see, at least in this catalog, is all quartz watches, and shows that Certina is certainly proud of having quartz watches. They don't shy away from quartz, as some other brands do. Finally, we get to the Urban Collection, which contains a mix of both quartz and mechanical Powermatic 80, which same name as the thing powering most Tissots, but anyway. We get to these, and these are nice classic watches. I think my favorite out of these would be the DS8, which is quartz, and is probably one of my favorite watches from their collection, after, of course, that big date. I'd say it's unique, but not different, if you know what I mean. It's unique and, well, maybe slightly different, but it's not off different. It's not off of the straight line of watches that look good, or, well, look good to most people at least. I do like the fact that in the gold version they have, in the date cutout, they have this little gold rectangle, which I think is a really nice touch. It really looks nice and interesting. And I think this is a theme of Certina, of having a specific look that's slightly different, but it's not really polarizing. It still has that familiar pleasantness of a good watch, of a traditional looking watch. And I do want to talk about the women's watches in this collection. Usually when there's a catalog and they have women's watches, they're sort of tucked to one side, or there's a special section for ladies' watches. In this catalog, they're all over the place. Not even necessarily at the end of a series. For example, this DS Action, you have a DS Action lady that's followed by a bunch of watches for men, and again, something for the ladies, and more watches for the men, which is interesting and quite unique. And at the very end of this catalog, we have the 3 pillars of Certina, the COSC, chronometer rating, which for me isn't anything special, DS Concept, and History, both of which are explained in later detail. You have a big photo of the DS Concept showing all the different things that make the DS Concept. Now, for some reason, they decided to stick this at the very end of this catalog, which doesn't make any sense to me. Shouldn't the background to a company be at the beginning to give you an insight into the watches, more insight into why their watches are the way they are? And it's very interesting. It's a special history that you wouldn't know about if you don't read the catalog to the very end, which who does in this day and age? They have a great history, something I didn't know about, that if I trust this catalog, then it's true, that in 1936 the Kurth brothers, who formed the company that would become Certina, created a mechanical innovation, the digital watch. Of course, it's not a Zeitwerk, but that's something they should advertise more, in my opinion. And in 1960, the Certina DS went to the Himalayas with a Swiss-led expedition, ascending Dhaulagiri, whatever, this big mountain that has a height of 8,167 meters. There. Every member of the team wore Certina DS timepieces. It was great. All of that fluff. What else did they do? Tech-Type 1 underwater project with the US Navy and NASA. Divers used a DS2 Super PH 500M timepiece. PH 500? I didn't see a 500 meter water resistant watch. If they have it, then great. If not, I think they should bring that back. 1970, Japanese expedition to Mount Everest. Japanese skier Miura wearing DS2 Chronolympic. a ski run, altitude difference of 1,000 meters from a starting altitude of 8,000 meters. I really think this is something that should be advertised more. I mean, skiing on Mount Everest by a Japanese skier wearing a Certina watch. That's something, isn't it? Now here's something on this next page that I found interesting. 1983, as a member of ASUAG, Certina becomes one of the founding members of the SMH group, Société Suisse de Microélectronique et de Horlogerie. During the merger with SSIH, the SMH group is later renamed the Swatch group. So Certina is one of the founders, one of the founding watch companies of Swatch. That puts an interesting spin on things. I don't really like it when Swatch buys watch companies, but this seems like Certina at least claims to be at the very start of Swatch, which puts a different perspective on them being a Swatch company. Alright, now on to the comparison with Tissot. Now, Tissot is very well known as being an entry-level Swiss watch company. Certina has very similar prices and in my opinion is better in certain areas. They've both got good prices. For example, the Big Date special edition that I really like, that retails for slightly under $1,000, which maybe not the best value out there, but not bad at all. I personally prefer Certina to Tissot. To be honest, I never liked Tissot for a couple reasons. For one, I don't like their design on the faces of the watch. And something else I don't like about them is having a little tiny bubble above the date wheel, the little teeny tiny magnifier. I don't like magnifiers. I can understand why Rolex would do that and it's become an icon of Rolex. I would prefer if they didn't do it, but they do it and that's what Rolex does. I don't like any other company doing it, especially when they make it small and useless. And the biggest reason why I don't like Tissot and prefer Certina is that they did not send me a catalog. So, because of that, Certina is, for me at least, a better alternative. Though not everyone has really heard of Certina, but Tissot is everywhere. So now my verdict on Certina. This is a company that I would not have known about had it not been for this catalog. It is a very special company that produces great watches. It's a big company, so you don't have to worry about the small company problems of micro brands. It's got good value, it's got good designs, and now I'm going to compare it to Rolex. Now, of course, this can't boast the sort of history and quality of Rolex. It can't boast even the diving history, the going to all the depths and all that history of Rolex, but it does have some accomplishments. And I would call this that PH200M watch sort of like an alternative to a Rolex Submariner Homage. Let me put it that way. So Certina is a great company and I would certainly buy the watches. And it's also a company that I may soon be able to buy the watches because they're not really out of my budget. Like a lot of the other brands I will be reviewing the catalogs of. I really do like Certina, yeah. Partly because this catalog was one of the first to arrive. Send me more catalogs. Thanks for watching the video to the end. If you liked it, please subscribe and like the video. Perhaps consider supporting me on Patreon. Any support would be greatly appreciated. I will be coming out with catalog collectors once a week for the foreseeable future. Of course, until I run out of catalogs. We'll see what happens then. See you in the next one.